Good morning!
Yeah. Thank you. Miguel's much better at that than me.
All right.
Nice.
Applause for leadership. Gotta love it. So thank you. We're here. This is a great event. We are oversold. There's gonna be people sitting on the aisle here, so be careful with them. There are people sitting along the wall. Thank you. If you have a free seat when someone comes in, wave your hand. That's what you have for logistics today. How many of you work in the carbon markets? Okay. How many of you don't work in the carbon markets?
Ah.
Hey, majority here. Gotta love this. How many of you are buyers? Raise your hand. You can be shy. That's okay. We're not going to flood you. Oh, there's a cautious one that's there. That's good. How many of you are investors? Okay, great. How many of you are regulators or stakeholders? Civil society. Okay, great. How many of you are project developers? Great. Let's get it done today. This market's been around for how long? Over 30 years. Let's get it done. So today I'm very grateful to be moderating this event with an extraordinary set of talented leaders from various industries. We have over 120 years of direct experience in forest carbon nature-based solutions on this panel. If you have a technical question, they can answer it for you. If you want to know about, I live in Austria, and you want to ask me about schnapps, you can ask me about that. But any technical questions, you ask them, okay? So very grateful for Terraformation for hosting us today. So thank you very much, Ihan. And it's wonderful, It's great to be here. So briefly, we'll have a Q&A. It'll be about 5 minutes for each question. There'll be a 30-minute Q&A with all of you. And I'll close. And there's going to be a networking session in the back with a lot of nice food to eat. Please take a time to meet the colleagues here. You can use your LinkedIn. You can pass people LinkedIn by taking pictures of that. Generate some momentum. Let's go get it done. Why? Because the only way we can solve climate change and address climate change is through protecting the forests that we depend on every day. And we know this. So introduce yourself too.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Yihan Wang, and I work at Terraformation. Previously, I worked with the Nature Conservancy, Climate Policy Initiative, WWF, World Bank. So I'm very much come from a public sector, and now I work with a private company, Terraformation, to drive private investments into high-quality forestry carbon projects. So a little bit about Terraformation. So we are in the business of building bankable carbon projects for investors, and we do so by equipping forestry teams globally with trainings, technology, and access to capital, and with the ultimate goal of bridging the financing gap to bring funding to scale nature climate solutions.
Yeah. So what's keeping you up at night?
Oh yeah. Like on a daily basis, what I do is to think about how to bridge the financing gap and how to scale NBS solutions to combat climate change. So that's my main focus, and I care about it because in my 10 years working in climate space, I hear investors saying over and over again that there's a lack of bankable projects to invest, and that's why we're in this business of developing high integrity projects so that there's a pipeline of supply to meet the demand of high quality carbon credits and to close the financing gap. So yeah, that's what I focus on a daily basis.
That's great. But Isabel?
Hi everyone, I'm Isabel. I am the nature lead at Climeworks. If you've heard of Climeworks, you'll probably have heard about our machines in Iceland that are sucking air out of the atmosphere. So a nature lead might seem like a strange role to have in that company. I'll tell you more about that later. What keeps me up at night? At the moment, I'm really looking at trying to get a firm overview of what's available on the market when it comes to nature-based solutions, what's out there, what's the best quality, how much does it cost, and then figuring out how we can match that to our customers in a way that actually means they're going to deploy capital into nature, which is, I think, why we're all there. So that's me briefly.
Hi everyone, I'm Sherry Sugal. I'm the founder and CEO of Integrity Global Partners. I founded the company a few years ago with the recognition that we needed to bring more high integrity, high quality projects into the space. And in order to drive investment and scale the market. And so we work a lot with both on the investor side in terms of bringing pipeline and bringing projects that are good investment opportunities in the nature-based space. And then we work on the project side to really work with those projects in doing all the things that make them into investable businesses. So everything from setting up the right teams to manage those projects and limit, sort of execution risk on the projects, working on setting up data rooms so they can communicate with investors, doing all the pre-due diligence on those projects to identify any issues ahead of time that might come up during that due diligence process with investors. And ultimately, we really believe that working on kind of both sides and bringing these pieces together is what's really important in this market. It's not real estate. There isn't a seller and a buyer, even though we think that there is. But in reality, this is really complex work, and we all need to work together to create really good investment opportunities. What keeps me up at night? What keeps me up at night is we can do this. We can create the projects. Investors are coming, but they all need to invest off of bankable offtake agreements. And what really keeps me up is just not having enough buyers in the space.
Mm-hmm.
So pass that on.
Hello everyone, my name is Miguel Calmon. I am the Senior Director of Programs at Conservation International in Brazil. So I'm Brazilian, of course. And so I manage a team and different programs to really help protect, restore, and manage critical ecosystems in Brazil. And again, I got involved with carbon finance by accident 25 years ago. My background, I'm an agronomist, so I probably helped to deforest some lands and to degrade some lands. So 25 years ago, someone called Sandra Brown.
Yeah,
Sandra Brown.
She's not here with us anymore, but she invited me to do a carbon inventory project in Brazil. So I went there, then I got in love with this forest, then I really started to appreciate forest nature. And here I am after 25 years working. This is my fourth global NGO, so I work for TNC, IUCN, WRI, and now Conservation International. And this should be my last one, so I'm not going to WWF to complete the whole cycle. But again, I have been involved with carbon finance ups and downs. And of course, when we started at that time, we thought that carbon finance would be the huge opportunity to really replace philanthropic money to do conservation and restoration. At that time, we were talking about 20,000 hectares, $18 million investments. Here we are after 25 years talking about billions of dollars, millions of hectares. So can we really take advantage of this new opportunity? And I think we can. This is why I'm back to CI. So hopefully we can really make this work. So anyway, it's a pleasure being here. And what's keeping me busy, to be honest with you, all of you in front of me here. So since last week when I heard I was coming to this event here, then I have been very busy trying to figure out what I can deliver to you guys that can be useful for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, good morning. I'm Miguel number 2. So,
Number one.
Thank you. Miguel Sosa Mardomingo from Capgemini, where I'm privileged to lead the sustainability practice for the Americas and work with several of you in this room to try to achieve your goals. What keeps me up at night? Back in the 60s, I believe, we had a race between two superpowers to try to get to the moon. And it was a race to try to get to the moon. Today, we have a race, but the funny thing is it's a race against ourselves. And it's a race against trying to preserve where we live, how do we help our communities, how do we keep nature there, keep the systems in place, and ensure that future generations get to breathe clean air, drink clean water, and have a life that is in harmony with the world around us. I have worked at Delta Airlines, Accenture, Capgemini, Xerox, Climate Impact Partners. I've been on the buy side, the sell side, the development side. All sides are critical to this process. Nature-based is critical, engineered is critical, but you are all critical. And so what keeps me up at night is how do we win this race collectively? And I think I'm concerned because sometimes the pace at which we do things drops dramatically, depending on market, depending on who's in office. But those things are temporary. Our life on this planet is so small relative to the future of the existence of where we are. So I just want each and every one of you to run with me. And I'm slow, so I need you all to run for me. But I look forward to a great chat today.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. And I'm your moderator, Gabriel Dumi. I've been in this space for over 20 years, worked in many different institutions along the way. And so, if I ask them a question, I could be asked the same question. Can we agree that's fair? Yes.
Yeah.
So what keeps me up at night? I see the same questions being asked every 4, 5, 7 years over and over and over again. And what I worry about is that we don't have institutional memory, right? So for example, if I ask someone here, let's do a quick survey. When were carbon offsets developed in the United States? What decade? Does somebody know? Okay, what?
1990s.
Okay, that's a pretty good answer. Anybody else? You're awake. You're in New York. You're supposed to be loud. Anybody else? 1977, John Palmisano, who's not here, won an EPA gold medal from Jimmy Carter for designing what were called air rights, the foundation of carbon markets. And they actually predate carbon. They were sequestering emissions from there in the air. That concept predates 1977. 50 years. Let's go get it done. So that's what I worry about. Our loss of institutional memory, because we need to not be asking the same question over and over again. So with that, Miguel, I have an open-ended question for you.
Which Miguel?
Number one.
Number one. Okay, we can agree on number one. Okay. Well, what do you think is what would you recommend institutions from a strategy perspective when they think about climate change today?
When we think about climate change today, the question is, what do I recommend for institutions?
Yeah.
So I've had the past several years talking to different institutions about where they see carbon fitting into their strategy. And I think there are a couple of different answers. One, where folks are worried about greenwashing claims and therefore they want to avoid it altogether. Two, they only have limited budget. So the question is, do we invest in decarbonizing internally and skip the B in voluntary altogether? Or three, they go for it and they split their work. So an answer to all three of those. If you are trying to live your life as a company and you are not doing anything to decarbonize and you are avoiding carbon offsets, then my question is, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Okay?
We can agree to that, right?
Number two, if you are asking yourself, we only have so much money, so how do we do that? That's a real world issue. And when you're doing voluntary action, it's really hard to go to your CFO in a downturn market and say, can we have 10 million to buy tons? I've been there. And the CEO of Delta during COVID kind of looked at me and was like, maybe not. But then he turned around and gave us $1 billion to go after it. Okay. So, what did we do?
Yes.
We made the argument, and again, I look at things, I'm in consulting, I look at business value. And I looked at what was the business impact and ROI of us investing in carbon offsets versus investing fully in SAF, which at the time was not fully available and developed. And it made sense to begin a tier strategy where we could do that. So my first piece of advice to those of you who are selling into this space is take a look and put yourself in the shoes of your buyers, particularly corporate buyers, and realize that they are always having to go argue the ROI and business value of doing anything. And if you don't know how to calculate the business value of what you're driving, you're going to have a really tough time without a CFO who understands what you're doing. Which brings me to my third group, the ones that are splitting and doing both. You have to go educate your C-suite. You have to explain to them that it's not just because it's a good thing to do, because you want to go hug a damn tree. You have to talk about the business sense of doing this. And whether it's regulatory, or whether it's because your customers, which at the end of the day, every corporation has a customer. And if your customers are demanding that you do good in the world, there are ways to do that. And carbon is good. The problem with most CSOs, when they go talk to their C-suite to get funding, is that they have to justify something that has negative press. Anyone that had a corporation in 2022 and was working at a corporation in 2022 or 2023, raise your hand. If you were working at a company in 2022 or 2023 that bought carbon, raise your hand. Okay. If you worked at The Guardian raise your hand.
And then go that way.
2023, and I'll end with this because I know we're limited on time. 2022 or 2023 for the carbon market was a disaster because the Guardian went and attacked certain projects. And I don't have beef against that. We should be held to a transparent standard if we're going to do good in this market. That's why we're here. That's why we trust one another to deliver. My beef is that in an imperfect system that has been around for, Gabby, 50 years,
Yep.
that is still trying to be perfect, it limits our ability to create meaningful impact to the world if all we do is nitpick on shit. So
Hear, hear.
instead of that, let's focus on what we can do. Let's be okay with 80% being all right. And let's be okay with trying to create transformative change in this world. If we don't, our companies will stop buying carbon. And if they stop, I can assure you the pace of decarbonization will not reach and match what we need to achieve our goals. That's it. So I hope that helps.
That's great. Yeah, thank you very much, Miguel. And I'll make a joke now. That concludes our presentation. We have our instructions. Let's go get it done. Okay. So what are we going to do, Yihan? Let's talk about reforestation and afforestation, the projects you're working on.
Yeah, so thank you, Miguel, for raising a really, really important point of, we can't reach the decarbonization goal without the carbon markets. There's no better alternative in the market right now. And I think it's really important to be aware that the reason we are entering the voluntary carbon market is because it's a financial mechanism to drive investments to decarbonization solutions. It's not like we are, trying to create the cheapest credits possible for corporate to claim claim emission reduction. It's about using it as a financial tool. It's a means to an end, but not the end itself. And that's the reason we are doing the project developers role to supply customers and buyers with high quality products. And I think one of the most important issue is developing high integrity products. That word, is like the center of the debate right now. How do we ensure high integrity? And how do we source and identify these high integrity products? I think the first question is how do we define that? So, there are no one-size-fits-all definition for this question, but at Transformation we use the best practice and best science available, and we advise 4 pillars when to define high integrity products: additionality, durability, co-benefits, and transparency. So additionality means the project benefits will not happen without the project, and that comes from dynamic baselining assessment to establish the counterfactual. What's the business as usual scenario, and what would happen, with carbon finance to make sure it's truly additional. And the durability means we need community buy-in, long-term support from all stakeholders, and the carbon sequestered in the forest will be locked in there for a long time. And we conduct frequent monitoring and evaluation to make sure the benefits are truly durable. And third, co-benefits means that the forests we create not only sequester carbon, but also provide income and equitable benefits sharing with local communities whose livelihoods depend on forests, as well as providing essential ecosystem services such as water conservation, soil restoration, land restoration, etc. And lastly, transparency. And I would encourage corporates or buyers, investors to demand transparency. This will push innovation in the monitoring, evaluation field, and also, force developers like us to really develop high-quality products. And that's what we need to really deliver the benefits we promise. And transparency can be ensured by using the best technology such as LiDAR, remote sensing, GIS mapping to evaluate and monitor the vegetation changes, hydrology conditions, and canopy density over time. And we need to combine that with field data collection, meaning that we need to really go to the site and set up sample plots to collect field data to ensure to verify against the remote sensing data we collect. And lastly, we need a third-party verification agency, such as Vera Gold Standard, and there's a number of rating agencies as well to verify the monitoring where the data collected are truly accurate and reflect the reality on the ground. So these are the 4 main pillars to ensure high integrity forestry projects.
Oh, I have a microphone, that's right. So, one thing I think we want to reflect upon what Yihan said about innovation. Another way of it, know what the flip side of innovation is? Failure. Now look at your phone. Who's using a phone from 2005 in their pocket? Right? None of you are, right? We have projects out in the market who failed from 2005. It was a different technology. If we're going to be successful in this business, we need to accept innovation, which we're going to have some success and some failure. Because if we don't try, is that we're going to tell our children? Oh, I didn't try to stop climate change because I didn't want to fail. I think that's a New Yorker cartoon. We don't want that, okay? So Isabel, let's talk about a portfolio approach. Because yeah.
Yeah, so I promised I'd tell you a bit more about how Climeworks has moved from a simple, not really simple, direct air capture units to also going into other forms of carbon removal. So it's no secret that direct air capture, or DAC, is an immature technology that's still going to need a lot of investment, research, and trial and testing before it gets to a scale that can be usable widely and to be able to fulfill the carbon removal targets that we have. So 18 months ago, in April 2024, we launched Climeworks Solutions, which is our portfolio offering of carbon removal technologies. So we now source across biochar, enhanced rock weathering, BECCS, direct air capture, and of course reforestation, afforestation, mangroves, nature-based solutions, which is what I'm responsible for at Climeworks. So why did we move towards that? There's the evident need of more research going into DAC and more investment going in that space. But also there's an evident need within the market at the moment for technologies. There's a demand for carbon removal technologies now. And so we wanted to make the most of that and help to grow this market as it exists today in the technologies that do exist today. So I am a nature person sitting in a DAC company, sitting on a nature panel, but I am going to defend DAC for a minute, so please bear with me. So as I mentioned before, we have this carbon removal target that we need to get to, and that is on average 10 gigatons a year in order to reach net zero. So that is a lot. If we were to fully rely on nature for that, it would mean the equivalent of replanting 1.5 times North America every single year with trees. So there is evidently a scaling limit if we rely only on nature in order to do that. Now, I know that can make me wildly unpopular, and what I often do say to my DAC colleagues is, wouldn't that be a lovely problem to have if we reached the limit where we would run out of land with which to restore the world? So we're not quite there yet. We obviously need to start with that, but while we're doing that, we also need to be investing in these technologies that are not yet mature, but will be fully needed in order to reach the carbon removal targets that are required. Climeworks is launching tomorrow what we call our optimal global portfolio, which is a blueprint for how we can invest in nature now, while also investing in the technologies that are so widely needed going forward as well. And I really recommend you to have a look at that. We'll be projected on the NASDAQ sign tomorrow, which is hugely exciting. So if you're walking through it right now, you'll see it there, but it's also going to be widely available online. So that's really if you're only looking at nature-based solutions in terms of carbon. Of course, we recognise that it's more than that, and what's been really exciting since we've started launching this nature-based solutions portfolio out of Climeworks is what we're seeing with clients is that, they're interested in carbon, they need to fulfil their carbon needs, but what's really motivating are these co-benefits that come along with it, which you do get with the other technologies, but not to the same extent. So we have customers coming to us and saying, yes, we need our nature-based solutions, but what we really want is these health benefits in Tanzania for this particular ecosystem. And so that's where Climeworks can come in and find these projects and help develop these portfolios that fit exactly what customers are looking for, yes, in terms of carbon, but also in terms of biodiversity and social impact. So it's moving far beyond just one molecule, and I think it's a very exciting vehicle to bring that investment into nature. And Climeworks is now operating in that, so think of us as nature people as well.
That's really wonderful. Awesome. Thank you, Isabel. Let's make sure we give Isabel a very warm round of welcome here, because you're welcome here in this event. Thank you. And so is Climeworks. That's great. Because,
even though you talked about that.
Because we need to protect our planet. It's where we live. It's simple. Sherry, you and I have been around this sector for a while. Won't tell how long. But you've seen a lot of changing and growing corporate interest and investor interest in nature-based solutions over 30 years. What's sustaining this corporate interest and investor interest over the last 30 years? They're not going away. There's ups and downs, but they're still here. What have you seen? Tell us, be wise for us.
I'll give you my wisdom. So just taking us a step back for a minute, I wanted to give us a little bit of perspective on the changing nature of carbon finance, because one thing that's really important to realize is that none of these projects, particularly the nature-based projects, would happen if there wasn't some source of financing that got them started, that initiated them, that allowed them to scale. And as Gabrielle said, I've been around long enough to kind of see that change firsthand. And so, back in 1990s, I would say until 2010, we were doing all this work with grant funding. 80 to 90% of NBS finance was coming from, and that was, still in the billions of dollars, but it was coming from World Bank, USAID, GEF, NORAD, philanthropy. And that arc has really changed. Then we started to see, I would say in the 2010s to 2020s, we really started to see a shift where corporates were starting to provide prepayments to get projects going. You had groups like Microsoft, Shell, Disney coming in because of CSR and ESG commitments, because of obviously the Paris Agreement and net zero pledges that companies were making. There was more shareholder pressure, there was more consumer pressure for climate-friendly products. And so we started to see a lot of corporates coming into the space and providing that upfront financing. I think a lot of Miguel's history was probably doing that as well. And so we still had some of the big institutions like the World Bank, FCPF program, the Biocarbon Fund that were spending over $1 billion during this time. So there still was that grant funding, but it was really more of like the corporates entering the space at that time. And now I'd say from 2020 until now and where we are, is really a change, and that is the market is growing. We are seeing more demand for nature-based credits. There's about anywhere from 30 to 70% premiums on nature-based credits. We're starting to see the emergence of new institutional capital coming into the space. But as one of my speakers at an event yesterday said, these have been miracle pockets of capital. So they're mostly groups like CAM, Mirova, they're investing on volume, right? They've traditionally invested on volume, and so because their LPs in their funds tend to be corporates that want to get access to future credits. What's changing now? And so we've seen that it's been oil and gas companies have been putting money in. We've seen trading companies putting money in, but where we're really starting to see now is the emergence of actual financing, instruments, right, from traditional financing coming into this market. It's not entirely here yet. Like, we don't have the infrastructure. We don't have everything set up to enable the scaling of this market the way that it needs to be, the way that we can get to, capital P, capital F project finance. And I'm talking about commercial equity, commercial debt, mezzanine debt, real project finance coming into this space. That's where we need to get to have the environment and the infrastructure in place to enable the $1 trillion of capital to come in so we can truly scale this market. And so what does this mean for us that are working in the space? As this new sources of capital are coming in, it means that the structuring of these deals has become very complex just in the last couple of years. Just to work on these deals requires a tremendous amount of finance expertise, to be able to negotiate terms, to be able to structure deals in a way that limit risk for project developer and for the investor. The governance has become also more complex. If you're an investor in an SPV, you're going to want to have, especially if you're taking equity, you're going to want to have a board seat. There's a lot of different decisions that need to be made in terms of the governance. Most of the investors are coming in now, as I mentioned in my opening comments, they want to invest off of bankable offtake agreements. And this is changing the nature of what these agreements are that corporates are signing. If we want to bring investment on the back end of those agreements need to look very different than the way they did before. Okay. They need to be highly enforceable, rigid terms, oftentimes, again, a lot more complex to make a real credit-worthy agreement. And finally, there's just a tremendous amount of due diligence, both on the offtake side and on the investor side. And so really understanding, and a lot of what Ihan talked about, and what makes high quality projects, the ability for investors and buyers to really understand the complexity of all of the risks and the way that those risks can be mitigated in those projects. That's something that has really changed tremendously. So that's something I see as the arc of change in what we've seen over the last 30 years.
Yeah, it's really changed. I mean, I remember being at CFA, which is a trade association for financial service industry, which I'm a member of. I was at the annual conference 15 years ago in Chicago, and they actually had an event on carbon, and I couldn't believe it. And there was, it was in Singapore with WRI and Permian Global. I mean, and now carbon's everywhere. So again, if you don't realize how much it's changed over time, you're going to get worried, you're going to be stuck in the details of today. But if you think that this is a sector that is growing and it's maturing rapidly, and it's gone from projects of 10 hectares, 20 hectares, and if you remember the Woodlands projects from 20 years ago in the UK versus now, I mean, Miguel number 2.
Yeah.
Millions of hectares. I don't even know what that is. That's so big. I mean, it's huge. And so this space is really changing. So, Miguel, over to you. Let's talk about some great successes you've had around social benefit sharing and working with indigenous communities, and how indigenous communities and forest dependent communities are prerequisite for success for projects.
Yeah, I think it's important first to give a context about what you're talking about here, right? Because every time you go to one of those COP meetings, right, every year the people, they live there saying, look, we need to support indigenous people, they are the ones protecting the forest, let's do it. But once you leave that room, nothing really happens, because the market does not recognize people protecting their forest. In the Amazon, not only Brazil, but Amazon, 8 of the 9 countries of the Amazon, we have 511 indigenous ethnic groups. They speak more than 300 languages. So this is just, again, it is a very complex. So if you really want to do something for those people, and then if you add those traditional communities, again, those are people. They are there, and they are protected, but they're not really getting the reward that they deserve. This is the real truth. So I think we need to have a big change on the way we try to figure out the equation. Okay, I understand that for you have to be additional, but not really helping them to do what they do on a daily basis, mostly through philanthropic money, which is very hard. I don't think we will be successful. And now we have another problem with indigenous communities everywhere. It's adaptation. Again, we are really seeing a lot of fires happening, a lot of illegal things happening, And if you don't help them, we will all fail together. So the market will need to adapt to that. But I will give you one concrete example, like in Brazil. Again, CI has been working like with indigenous communities for over the last 30 years. And there's just one of those groups called Kayapó. So Kayapó, if you type Google, say Kayapó territory, they are located in the Xingu River Basin. If you look at them, only the forest inside this 10 million hectares. Nice, if you see around, all red. Those guys, 10,000 people, 10,000 indigenous people live there, 135 communities in that territory. Again, if we don't help them, then this will be a huge failure. Right now, they spend per year to steward their land, to protect their land, they spend $1.5 million. That philanthropy money will not be there forever. So unless we come with the carbon markets to really help them, then we'll fail. So for them to agree to develop a carbon project, again, we have been working with them for 30 years. And CI, again, is just one player. There are many other players. In fact, a lot of them funding this work. Just for them to agree, the Kayapó community, to agree to start thinking about developing carbon projects on their lands, they went through 30 consultation meetings, 30, to agree on, we want to maybe see if carbon can help us. And now they are coming to us, to other people, say, okay, can you guys figure this out? How can it really help us? So this is our challenge. We have been investing a lot of governance. Again, very important to work with them on governance. Benefit sharing. This is something that people, I think they underestimate what is the real meaning of benefit sharing. It's not benefit sharing, putting more on the investors and less on the people there, because those are the guys taking care of that. Safeguards. Again, safeguards sound a pretty ugly word, right? But again, you cannot really afford anymore to work on any carbon project without having a good safeguards program up there. So all those things, we need to figure this out together. So for me, and every time when we talk with people, people say, well, this is not marketable and so on. I say, so what is the solution here? So we have one experience in Peru. There's a recent one with a community, with indigenous community there, Aguajún in Alto Mayo, Peru. It has been very successful, but again, to start with them, it took many consultation process meetings to figure out what they want, because they are the ones that need to decide what they want to do on their lands. It's not us that should go there and tell them what to do. But again, even if we are successful in bringing all the finance to those indigenous people, we still need to do a better work also on the policy work. Titling the rights to the land of those people, it varies a lot among the countries. In Brazil, the land of indigenous people belong to the nation, to the union. The indigenous people, they have the exclusive right to use that land. Yeah. So, and in their mind said, look, if I have the exclusive right to use that land, I don't know for how long, the carbon belongs to me. So there's a lot of legal debate there about, okay, who has the right to the carbon? And this is the reason why maybe the market will not really go there, because again, still, if we don't figure this out among ourselves in our country, how can others do that? So there's an agency in Brazil called FUNAI, which is responsible for all the indigenous community there. They decide to hold a little bit the process until we figure this out. Because again, we are struggling to really do carbon projects with indigenous people and local communities. And most of the scandals in Brazil that happen, that really damage the carbon market, it happened because people went there, they put a piece of land on the map, they sold the credits, and they never spoke with the local communities. So for me, I said, when it started 25 years ago, again, the same issues we had at that time. Baseline, leakage, permanence, we still have the same issues. At that time, we didn't have a lot of the tools we have now there, but again, if we really are still making those mistakes, either because we are not really learning from the past or because we don't have a good intention. So I think we need to also to realize that again, when you see a lot of money going to any place, this is for any market, right? You have the good guys, you have the bad guys. So we need to eliminate those bad guys. Instead of blaming the market, which is a very important finance mechanism, we need to take the bad guys out of the market, period. But again, people use those excuses to not really put money over there because again, because of the bad guys, No, we need to focus on the good guys. Focus on the ones that they can do that. So again, we are very optimistic right now that we hopefully will start really doing our first carbon project with these people in Brazil, with the Kaya pod, but we still have a long ways to go. And again, it's not about only CI. We have to work with developers, good developers. We have to work with good investors. They really are there for the long term, not on the short term. Again, removals, right? Removals became very important because, right, you go plant, restore land, you can measure, so on. But if you go there and make a commitment to stay there only for 5 years, who will take care of those lands being restored 30, 40, 50 years ahead of us? So we need to be there on the long term.
As I say, this is not the context is specific to indigenous people in forest-dependent communities, but it's not unique in the sense it's a long-term infrastructure model, right? And we as society have been investing in greening infrastructure for hundreds of years. I mean, here we're in New York City, our water comes from the Catskills. It's a greening infrastructure model that's been around for maybe 150 years. If you're in Salt Lake City, the Wasatch, the mountains there, that's the watershed that protects the water for Salt Lake City. Now, watershed is different than carbon credits, but it's about green infrastructure. So this is a long-term trend. We're growing. This industry is expanding, and we need you to lead it with us. We're tired, so we need to pass the baton to each of you. And I'm looking to you, Jeff. So with this, we're about to close. We're going to do a round robin on closing thoughts about what you consider a high quality. What are the conditions around high quality projects? And then we're going to do a short Q&A, and then I'll close, okay? Because we want to give you a couple minutes to be able to socialize with our leaders here on the panel afterwards. So if you're interested in asking some questions, I want you to line up with the microphone, okay? And line up over here. And then we'll start from here with Ihan. We'll close with Miguel on your what defines a high quality project for investing and buying. What are you seeing right now?
Yeah, so I touched upon this earlier, so I'm not going to repeat the 4 pillars, but I think the panelists said it really, really well. So, when we develop projects, we have to do this in very close partnership with indigenous communities, making sure that they are part of the decision making. They own the project, and then they have their voice and their rights are an integral part of how we design and implement the project. And then look for the labels and the standard methodologies in the market to source projects. So, for example, there are CCP labeled the core carbon principle under the ICBCM. That's a really good evidence of proof of evidence for high quality, high integrity projects. And then lastly, I would say demand transparency, just like how you invest in a stock. Do your due diligence and monitoring, verification, making sure it's not a one-time activity, but do it consistently and frequently, and really look at the publicly disclosed record, or demand publicly disclosed record of how each credit is originated and what's the true impact, what technology and methodologies they are using to verify these results. I would really, encourage buyers and investors to do your own due diligence or have a third-party agency, an independent agency to verify the quality of the project. But at the end of the day, I think it really takes close collaboration between developers, buyers, governments, philanthropies, scientists, and the business to work together to ensure we close the financing gap and scale nature-based solutions, because they're critical for shifting creating a paradigm shift in the market. We need to see from a model that's driven by exploitation, degradation, extraction, distraction, to a model that's more regenerative.
Okay, well, great, thank you. That's over to you, Isabel.
Thank you. The sun has come out here. Basically everything that you said, and also I would just say from our perspective, what we really look for is kind of a real full open book. We're talking to lots of different suppliers. We have a good overview of the project developers and the projects that are up and running and that are in planning in the market today. And stuff is going to go wrong. It's going to go wrong in planning and in execution, and if we know about it, then we can fix it. And so we can really identify what's highest quality in the developers who are completely honest and open and giving us the tools to find solutions together. And it is really about working between buyers and developers to make sure that there are no nasty surprises, and that we can use all of these different quality elements that you very rightly highlighted, and make sure that everything is going smoothly in that sense. So basically that, and then the other bit on really what you were mentioning earlier, these projects actually really need to be sort of woven into the fabric of society in terms of planning, but then also in terms of execution. And you can tell that when you're doing a due diligence, whether it's an anecdotal stakeholder consultation or whether it's really a project that's been planned with the people that live in that area. And that's a problem, that's a solution towards permanence, additionality, all of the buzzwordy topics that you hear. If that's actually really integrated into the society of the project area, then those are all ticked off. So it's as simple as that, really. Not simple at all, but there you go.
So just putting on the sort of investor hat here for a second, because we get asked this all the time, what certain attributes the project has to consider, either as a buyer that might be doing a prepayment or as an investor in the project. I'd say there's 5 categories. There's kind of that others have touched on, the environmental and kind of credit integrity, and so all the standards of additionality, permanence, how is the MRV set up. But then luckily we do have some benchmarks now in the market, like the ICVCM core carbon principles, that are giving a kind of CCP label to those methodologies. And so buyers and investors are looking to those methodologies that have CCP labels. Is the methodology eligible in Corsia? Is it Article 6 eligible? Can we get a corresponding adjustment on those credits? Those are questions we get asked every day, and unfortunately we're not there yet. Again, the regulatory environment is not caught up with what the demand is for having credits with CAs, but we'll get there in the next couple of years. Second category, I would say, are the community and social benefits. Increasingly, again, we are not sitting on opposite ends of the table here. Investors and buyers want to see that there are very strong revenue sharing or profit sharing arrangements within these projects. They see that as a very strong risk mitigant in the project. The communities need to love these projects and really be bought into the projects because they are the stewards, of the lands long term. Thirdly is the financial and kind of market credibility. I touched on this earlier, but is there a bankable offtake agreement underlying this project? What are the risk mitigation tools that we used? Can we get insurance, on the project? Most investors will take insurance on the projects. What is the governance structure? How is this project going to be managed? Who's in charge? Do they have experience doing this? Do they know how to run a project, a complex project with so many different stakeholders and communities involved? And have they been successful at doing that over decades? We're seeing more and more that investors are saying one of the main things that they look at is execution risk. And so they look at companies or project developers that have a long history, successful history of protecting land and restoring land. So that's really important. Fourth is policy and the regulatory environment. I touched on this earlier, but the issue around corresponding adjustments is becoming really front and center. But also, what kind of risk do I have if I'm investing in a project that country is going to change the law and no longer allow that project to sell carbon credits? I heard yesterday, no one wants to touch Indonesia. That's just there's been too much chaos. And there's lots of other countries that I think unfortunately fall into that same bucket. The host country risk can just be too high in some places. And then scalability. can we really scale this project to a size that makes it financially viable and attractive? Can we grow, as an investor? Can we stay invested over long term in the project? What is that plan for scalability beyond, what's happening now, which are generally, if a project's looking for financing, it's generally a pilot project. So how do we really scale them? I think that's it.
Okay.
Not much to add here. So they said, so if you listen, they can repeat for you. They can go. But again, I think there's still some basic things that we need to ensure to make sure that we have high quality carbon credits, right? That, again, as I said before, we're still making mistakes even on establishing the baseline. This shouldn't happen anymore. There's no reason for this, unless you don't have a good intent, but there's no reason for that. Leakage is still a very big problem. Like in Brazil, a lot of the removals, of course, they happen on degraded pasture. And probably almost all the degraded pasture there, you have cattle there. That cattle will go to some place. So how you can compensate with that? And again, sometimes we minimize, or we are willing to take a discount to get less credit, but you're not resolving the problem of leakage anyway. So not getting a discount does not mean that you're really addressing the issue. I think, like in Brazil, 25 years ago, I remember, like, that project I mentioned to you, 3 investors, $18.4 million, 1,000 hectares of restoration, 19,000 of conservation. Now in Brazil, we have 4 companies. They committed to restore 3.5 million hectares. 4 startups, removed for business. Some of them only carbon, other ones they are looking to carbon plus timber production, non-timber, and I really believe that we should combine carbon with real products on the table. So for me, I think we should really invest more on that, especially because those companies, when they started, they wanted to buy land for their projects. But they realized that you cannot buy all the land you want. You have so many issues to buy land everywhere, not only in Brazil. Second, because it's not a good thing to do anyway. I think you should work with the whole landscape, engage the landowners. So for me, one way that we can minimize a lot and ensure high quality carbon credits, first of all, to invest a lot on the engagement. We don't spend money on engaging whoever is on that landscape. Second, capacity building. How can you, again, if we struggle sometimes to understand all the things with carbon, how can you expect people there, a farmer, that he was told in the past that if I convert my land to corn, soy, or whatever, this was the only way I could make money. Now you're telling that farmer, plant trees on your land that you're going to make money. It's the contrary. You grew up that you need to deforest to make money. Now you need to restore to make money. So it's like so this is why we need to understand what they want, where they come from, and then we can offer the solution. We need to build a solution together with them. Then you can ensure the long-term commitment and, of course, the permanence of those credits. So again, for me, it's like if we don't really, again, spend more time developing those things, which is a big cost of the project, some people overlook that, I think we are going to not to produce. Because again, on the short term, you can produce a lot of the high quality. You have so many standards right there. I think we have too much, in fact, right? Because if people are then, they're creating more strict rules to combat the bad people. And this is terrible, because again, we are getting to the point that it's becoming impossible. And yesterday I was in a meeting that people were talking about that they spoke to 300 companies, and 80 of them, they still don't believe that nature is an asset class. At the same time, if you look at the half cup full, we say, well, 20% now they believe, so this is going to be good, right? It's like, it's good. But still, the big question that was in that meeting was that we are not also considering the cost of inaction. The more we take to do things will get worse, it's not getting better. And this will hit all of us at the same time, as we are seeing all the time.
Yeah. So Miguel, can you close this with, and then we go to Q&A? Thank you very much. Yeah, Miguel, numero uno.
You can see the passion of these folks, and I just live and breathe it every day. So for buyers, right, or for sellers or for investors, what do you think quality means for buyers? Well, they've been very public about what that means. So my first tip to sellers, if you don't know what buyers want, It's all public information, right? They created, Eric over at Workday, Max at Salesforce, they got together, they created the Buyer Alliance for Carbon. Basque. Go read it. They tell you literally what their requirements are. And if you haven't read that, you're behind. Microsoft published exactly what they buy and how. If you haven't read that, you're behind. So, we can talk about what we think quality is, but the real end of the day quality is the decision maker that's putting money up to buy. So get to know what the people buying are. For buyers in the room, please don't make it complicated. Okay? Like, I worked with buyers who had like 55 pages of terms and conditions. And it was like 6 weeks of discovery. Look at the people on stage, right? We don't have 15 hours to document everything. So let's be a little bit clear on what's really necessary, right? And I understand we need to be careful. We don't want to buy a carbon offset that again ends up in the garden, right? I get it. But be sensitive to the fact that you're dealing with teams of ones and twos, not teams of thousands. And particularly if you're going direct to source to develop, you're dealing with folks that are speaking 300 different languages, that are 15 hours away from where you are, that don't have Excel, and they're trying to do what's right. Now for investors, again, it is sexy, I will use that word, to invest in new and new and new. But my problem with that is we still have credits that are unretired from 2005, 2006, and 2007. So we're penalizing people that took risks 20 years ago to try to do this and cutting them out because it's not sexy? Like, I don't get it. So again, as a buyer, think about how to give a little bit of love to the people that did it from the beginning. Then differentiate your portfolio, as we heard, to ensure that you're capturing the market today, because you want to be on trend. For investors, kick the tires, go visit, bring clients with you. That is my other piece of advice for investors. Bring clients with you to go to a project visit, get to know what they want. And for sellers, please do your due diligence. The information is all out there. Quality is defined by where you put your money, where your mouth is. And if you don't read up on that, you're behind. Make sense?
Yep.
Yep.